everybody, welcome to another edition of the Shiur. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this week, and we'd like to wish a refuah shlema to Ram ben Saragito, to Shoshana bat Leah Shana, and to Meir ben Yaakova Alta Tova. Refuat nefesh, refuat guf, in the zuchut and the merit of the Torah that we learn. We should hear besorot tovot for the people who are not well, and for the war that's going on over here, which is really affecting everybody all around the world. And we hope that those in Toronto stay safe from all the pro-Palestinian protesters at the universities, and we really do hope that you guys should protect yourselves over there. We over here in Eretz Yisrael are very concerned for you. We'd like to speak about the parasha this week. This is something we have spoken about in the past, this exact same topic, and I think I want to revisit it because of its importance. And it goes as follows. So the story is, at this point in the Torah, that the Jewish people are just about to enter Eretz Yisrael. They're just a few days away from entering the Holy Land, the Promised Land. And Moshe Rabbeinu, based upon the advice of some of the members of the Jewish people, decides to send spies over to Eretz Yisrael to go ahead of the people and scout out the land to see what we're up against, and maybe what we can expect going into Eretz Yisrael. Sounds like a pretty good idea. Sounds like nothing can go wrong. Who did Moshe Rabbeinu send? Moshe Rabbeinu sent some of the most important and biggest tzaddikim among the Jewish people. Kulam anashim Roshei b'nei Yisrael hema. Some of the leaders of the b'nei Yisrael. Kulam anashim. Anashim means people, but the Chachamim tell us that in the Torah, anashim has a connotation of tzaddikim, of righteousness. These were very righteous people. So you can imagine the biggest rabbi that you know, hat, white shirt, gives a big shiur to a lot of people, has a lot of subscribers to his YouTube channel. Anashim, people, very important tzaddikim. Those were the people that were sent to Eretz Yisrael to scout out the land. It sounds like a very promising and very logical idea. Unfortunately, this backfired on Moshe Rabbeinu and the Jewish people as a whole. The spies took 40 days to scout out the land of Eretz Yisrael, and they came back with negative news. 12 spies were sent. 2 did not want to speak badly about Eretz Yisrael. That's Yoshua bin Nun and Kalev ben Yefuneh, who were 2 great tzaddikim. And the other 10 spies, they came back saying all sorts of Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. The fruits are too big. The people are very tall. They're very strong. The people that were dwelling there are very powerful. And they said, we're not going to be able to wage war against these people. We're not going to be able to conquer the land. We're going into a futility over here. And all the Jewish people, upon hearing this news, this unfortunate news, this Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael, began to cry and cry and cry. And that day actually was Tisha B'Av. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, because you cried on that day, I'm going to make you cry every Tisha B'Av from now on. This was a very terrible day for the Jewish people. And in addition to that, as a punishment, an immediate punishment, they got, for every day that the spies spent in Eretz Yisrael, that's 40 days, they got 1 extra year in the Midbar. Again, they were just about to enter Eretz Yisrael. They're in a hot desert. They don't want to be there. They want to settle. But now they got an extra 40 years in the Midbar, in the desert. And this was a very tragic episode, one of the most tragic episodes in the Torah. Now, more than that, it's not just that the Meraglim, that the spies spoke badly about Eretz Yisrael. The Meraglim caused an uprisal, a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the anointed leader of Klal Yisrael by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Hashem said that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be your leader. You are going to listen to everything he says. And Moshe Rabbeinu was a direct line between the Jews and Hashem. No one else spoke to Hashem on the level that Moshe Rabbeinu did. And they came out and said, Moshe Rabbeinu is leading us to our deaths. He's leading us to this place where we cannot fight these people. We're not going to win that war. And they started to speak poorly about Moshe Rabbeinu. And moreover, and worse than that, Al Hakol, above everything, they started to speak words of kfirah, of heresy, against HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. They said things like HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have the capability and the wherewithal to help us fight this war, to beat the people who are settling currently in Eretz Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very powerful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can fight any war. He's stronger and more tactical than any missile, ballistic, or whatever type of missile that anybody sends. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is capable of protecting anyone from that. But the Meraglim and the Bnei Israel as a whole came out and said words of kfirah. They said, Lo nucha la'alot ela am ki chazak hu mimenu. They are stronger than Hashem. That is what they said. And we have to understand how in the world this happened. You have these great tzaddikim, top of the line, top tier tzaddikim, elite tzaddikim. And in 40 days, when they were sent, they were at that level. And 40 days later, they went down to the level where they were speaking kfirah, they were speaking heresy against the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Imagine if your favorite rabbi, Orthodox rabbi, went over on a vacation for 40 days, and you looked up to him so much, and he came back from that vacation and started telling you things against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, against the Torah, against Judaism. Can you imagine if your rabbi came back and said that? So how did this happen? How did this actually happen? So we have the answer from the book Mesilat Yesharim, The Path of the Just. And the Mesilat Yesharim tells us the following. Apparently, the Meraglim, the spies, were afraid and concerned that when they entered Eretz Yisrael, they would lose their positions. Right now, they were the Roshei B'nai Israel. They were the heads, they were the leaders of a group of Jews. They had a certain system of hierarchy in the Midbar. They divided Klal Yisrael into different groups, and each of those groups had a leader. The size of these groups varied. I don't know what the criteria was, but every group had a leader. And the spies that were sent were all Roshei B'nai Israel. They were the leaders. And they were afraid that when they entered Eretz Yisrael, perhaps when a person goes to Eretz Yisrael, he becomes much greater than he is currently. When a person's in Chutz La'aretz, he can grow up to here. When he's in Eretz Yisrael, the sky is the limit and beyond. Eretz Yisrael has a special power to give a person a big boost in ruchniut, in spirituality. So they were afraid, maybe these people in the Midbar, that right now they're nobody, but once we enter Eretz Yisrael and they breathe the air of Eretz Yisrael, maybe they'll become very special, and maybe they'll surpass us, and maybe we're going to lose our positions, and they're going to become the leaders. They're going to usurp our positions. And so they were worried. And therefore, the Mesilat Yesharim says that is actually the reason why they spoke Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. They created a plan that would prevent the Jewish people as a whole from entering Eretz Yisrael so that they can protect their positions. Now, if at the time you were to have a conversation with one of these spies, they would certainly tell you that, of course, the reason why they spoke Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael is because it's true. That's what we all say when we speak Lashon Hara. I include myself. That's always the justification. It's okay to speak Lashon Hara, to speak badly about that person, because it's true. That person does smell bad. That person is cheap. And therefore, I am justified in speaking Lashon Hara. It's all right, because it's true. Now, as a side note, and this is a complete tangent, the Chafetz Chaim tells us in his Sefer Chafetz Chaim, which is all the laws of Lashon Hara. It's one of the first things he writes. He says that people think that they can speak Lashon Hara if it's true, but in fact, that is the definition of Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is only Lashon Hara when it's true. That is the Isur, that prohibition of Lashon Hara, saying something negative about another person when it's true. To say something false about somebody else, that's a separate prohibition called Motzi Shem Ra. That's something else entirely. It's in the same family, but it's a totally separate prohibition. Lashon Hara is when it's true. So if you ask the Meraglim at the time, the spies, they'll say, well, it's true. The fruits in Eretz Yisrael are very big. That's a strange thing. It's a very strange place. The people there are huge. And they were burying all sorts of bodies over there. They saw all sorts of weird things. And they would have definitely said that. But the Mesilat Yesharim tells us that in truth, if you were to dig deep into their subconscious, into their psyche, the real reason why the Meraglim spoke Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael is because they were worried about their kavod. They were worried about their honor. They're worried about their status and their name. And that is what drove them all the way from the very top down to the very, very depths of ruchniut desolation, of spiritual emptiness. And it's an amazing thing. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says there's three things that are motzi et adam min haolam. They take a person out of this world. They are kin'ah, jealousy, ta'ava, desires, and kavod, honor. These are three things that if a person involves himself in these bad midot, in these bad characteristics, then he is going to inevitably find himself just free falling in an endless downward spiral. And that's what happened here to the Meraglim, to the spies. They touched on this midah of kavod, of honor, of protecting their honor, which many people think is a very, very important thing for some reason, the honor, my reputation. And because of that, they entered a free fall state. And in a free fall state, such as they were in, it only takes 40 days, guaranteed or your money back, to be a tzaddik gamur, a complete tzaddik, a very righteous person, to the lowest of the low, where they were speaking literal kfirah and heresy against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 40 days, that's all it took, because they were attached to this midah of kavod. So when it comes to us, let's say you're offered a position, and in order to fulfill that position, it's a very honorable position. In order to fulfill that, you'll have to commit certain averot, certain sins. Be very careful, because a person will tap into that characteristic of kavod, of honor, try to protect his honor. And through that, he is going to do all sorts of sins. He's going to eat at the non-kosher restaurant in order to satisfy his employers. And he's going to have to speak lashon hara about the competition, which in most cases is completely forbidden. And this and this and that and that. And eventually he's going to have to be forced to say something like, yeah, Hashem, he doesn't really care if I break Shabbat. I can do that job for you on Shabbat, no problem. I can work on Yom Tov. I can drive my car. That's perfectly fine. And eventually he'll just say, you know what, Hashem doesn't exist. There is no Hashem at all. And he'll feel perfectly justified because he has to protect his honor. That is the free fall that a person can get into. It's a very practical situation. It's very important to understand that we have this potential within us. Now, another point that we have to mention over here is, what did the spies stand to lose? And this is astonishing. The Mefarshim, the commentaries, tell us that these Meraglim, these spies, were the heads of 50 people. Now, as I told you, there was a system of hierarchy in the Midbar, in the desert. So they had Sari Alafim. They had leaders of a group of 1,000. Then they had Sari Me'ot, leaders of a group of 100. And then they had Sari Chamishim. They had leaders of a group of 50. Now, if you're a leader of a group of 1,000, that means that you're like a super, super tzaddik. If you're a leader of 100, then you're an incredible tzaddik. If you're the leader of 50, you're a tzaddik. You're not a superhero. You're just a regular run-of-the-mill tzaddik. Maybe you're a little bit better than everybody else. And yes, this was a very special generation, so it is saying something to say that person's a tzaddik. It's true. But what they stood to lose was this position of being Sari Chamishim, the leader of 50 people. Can you imagine that? They were willing to throw away the entire plan of going to Eretz Yisrael and just get rid of everything, scrap it all. Let's stay here in the desert. Let's go back to Mitzrayim. Why? Because I'm afraid that when I get to Eretz Yisrael, I am no longer going to be the leader of 50 people. Imagine somebody's giving a shiur. Somebody gives a daf yomi shiur or any type of shiur, and there's 50 people in attendance at that shiur. That's not a very big shiur. We get more views on our videos sometimes. I could be one of these Sarei Chamishim. I don't know. Sometimes we get less than 50. We have to find a way to bring those numbers up. But imagine if that person were told that if you were to stop giving the shiur, then Mashiach would come right away. You stop giving the shiur, Mashiach will come right away. And I will say, I'm not giving up my position. Mashiach can wait. Let's wait for the Mashiach to come. I have to give my shiur to 50 people. You look like a fool. But that's exactly what happened over here with the Meraglim, with the spies. It's an incredible, incredible thing what a little bit of kavod can do, a little bit of honor, a little bit of a plaque on a building, a little bit of a name drop when you donate a couple $100 very generously to some institution. it is really incredible what kavod can do. It can bring a person into a free fall, into a downward spiral. He can reach the depths of spirituality, and there is no returning from that. There is no returning from the effects of kavod. So there's a lot to learn here from the Miraglim. I want to thank everybody for listening and the sponsors as well. And refuah shlema, besorot tovot to all Am Yisrael bezrat Hashem.